In today's episode of Brit in Poland, I wanted to revisit the Palace of Culture and Science. It is Warsaw's most iconic building, and also a source of a few interesting stories, and a bit of controversy as well. At 3,288 rooms, it's quite a feat, and it is really something that anyone who comes to Warsaw cannot miss, and I sincerely recommend that you take the tour around it, which I did today, which kind of inspired me to remake this video. So I hope you enjoy, I hope you learn something interesting, and please visit the tower. I really think it is worth the look. Dzień dobry. Welcome to A Brit in Poland. This channel has a number of missions. The main one, to create a video for every place on this list. Though I could use your help. The help could be in a number of forms. You could like my video, you could subscribe to my channel, you could follow me on Facebook or Instagram, or you could donate to my Patronite account. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoy the video. Warsaw's most notable building. The palace was actually built on commission of Joseph Stalin between 1952 and 1955. Pretty impressive to build it in that time frame. And it took 3,500 to 5,000 imported Russian labourers, as well as 4,000 Polish labourers to take this effect. It was originally named the Joseph Stalin Palace of Culture and Science, with of course Joseph Stalin's name being dropped. And it was technically commissioned by Bolesław the Beirut, president of Poland at the time. I don't think he really was given much choice in the matter. The thing to note about the palace and its initial construction is Warsaw was basically in complete ruins. And what did the residents want? They wanted somewhere to live. At the time, they were living in basements or burned down buildings. And it was Russia's priority to build this tower. It was basically a symbol of good faith by the Soviet Union. The tower was designed by Lev Rudniev, who, of course, wanted to make it a Polish design. So he toured Poland to find some inspiration. So you find some inspiration from Krakow and Zamość, for example, hidden in the design route. And the materials are quite impressive. You have 40 million bricks and 26,000 tons of steel involved here. And the marble is also quite fun. It was taken from Western Poland. Basically, after, Germany had to give back or hand over a large proportion of its territory to Poland, the marble was basically stolen from those palaces. So, recycling at its best. Now, it's not the only tower of its kind. I've been to one in Riga, which is quite similar, and you have what they call the Seven Sisters in Moscow. So, yeah, it's not entirely original, and it's a prominent communist symbol. One other thing to note during the construction is apparently 17 workers died. I think only one of those being revealed several years later because it was kind of covered up. And there have been 8 suicides, including some French chap who, rather than jump off the Eiffel Tower, said that the Palace of Science and Culture was his preferred choice. Something like 20% of the people that have jumped off the Palace of Science and Culture have actually survived. There have been a few parachutists, so I'm hoping that those were the ones that actually survived. But this goes on to say that the palace itself is actually haunted, and various sounds have been heard from the palace, so it's quite interesting. The monuments that you see dotted around inside, and as well as some of the like the outer facing, was actually imported from the Soviet Union and made in a remote factory in the Ural Mountains. And the clock, which you see up at the top with its four faces, one on each side, was installed in 2000 and is actually the second biggest clock in Europe. So pretty impressive. And just to give you a few random facts, you have a cinema with 8 screens, 4 theatres, 2 museums. The palace itself is 237 metres tall, including the antenna, and has an area of about 815,000 cubic metres. 43 floors, including a nesting area for the peregrine falcons at the top. The observation deck, which we'll come back to, and 10 plus bars. So it's pretty impressive. And they said on the tour that it can actually be viewed from up to 25 kilometers away. So it's pretty impressive. Another fun fact is it actually has cats in the basement. Apparently there used to be 60 or so of them back in the day, and there are 11 left. And much like number 10 Downing Street, the cats are there to kill off the mice. And they live in the basement level on -2, but don't worry, they get fed as well. Now, in terms of some historical events, one notable one was in 1967, when the Rolling Stones were invited to play. And so they came, they drank, well, let's say they discovered Polish vodka, which was a bit of a rarity in the West at the time. And they got very drunk on Polish vodka, and so were a bit hungover. And maybe it helped because instead of being greeted by cheering fans, they had basically about 3,000 people in suits, who were all members of the political party and all told, this is the evil of the West that we must rebel against. And when they were paid, apparently they didn't read the contract closely, so they were paid half in dollars or Deutschmarks, I can't remember, and the other half in zloty. And at the time, zloty was actually useless outside of Poland. So what they did was they used the zloty to buy vodka, which they then tried to ship back to the UK. Customs decided to put a pretty heavy tariff on this vodka. It got shipped back to Poland and mysteriously disappeared. I think some government officials had fun with that. The palace has had various unflattering nicknames over the years, such as Pekin, the vertical barracks, Soviet Trojan horse, Russian wedding cake, elephant in lace underwear, and a lot of more unsavory names. And this basically, it wasn't particularly well received when it was built, and there are still many people now who aren't exactly happy with the tower. But you can say this is more of the older generations. What was originally, let's say, a symbol of Soviet oppression is now taken as like a symbol of pride and a symbol of freedom, and the freedom of Poland. And so it is actually a very beloved monument amongst people, but it still remains a little controversial. And to talk a little bit more about what you will find in this tower, because it is really quite impressive how much they have squeezed in there. So Of course, the main place that most people go to is the observation tower. This gives you a 360-degree view of the city. Every time I go up to this tower, it ends up being windy and ends up being cloudy. So I'm just cursed. Every time I go up there, no matter how sunny a day it is, the weather always comes in at the wrong moment. You have about 10 bars in there, or cafes, dotted around. And yeah, so you plenty of places to drink or just have a coffee. And also you have a couple of kind of, you could say, clubs. One is called the Mirage Club, and this is actually underground. I went there for work once, and we had fun. We had way too many people inside, but it was an interesting evening. And then you have the one to the right of the main entrance, which is a popular place, though I always find it a bit crowded on the dance floor for my moves. You have two museums. So you have the Museum of Evolution, which is your ideal place to see dinosaur skeletons in Warsaw. And you have the Museum of Technology, which is a good place to learn about computers, learn about transport, and yeah, there you have it. You also have 4 theatres. I haven't really been to a theatre in Poland yet, but it's on the agenda, maybe when I understand a bit more Polish. And another thing to note is the palace is used as a bit of a political symbol. So you find at night that the palace is often decorated in various colours. And during, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, it was coloured in blue and yellow for several months. And you will find that this is kind of replicated when there are other events of significance, either around the world or even during protests in Poland itself. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's definitely a place that you will see. You cannot avoid this tower if you come to Warsaw. In fact, if you come from the train station, it is the first thing you see. And ironically, this is why it was put in the location it was, so that you cannot miss it. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and do zobaczenia.